Alright, going to demonstrate some new fencing code that I've written. So if you've used copter fencing before, then you'll know that you can use it to sort of define a box in which the copter will stay, and if you breach the fence, then it'll switch to a fence failsafe action, usually RTL. And also if you're in Loiter, then it'll use the avoid code to stop you breaching the fence. So you can set up a circle fence, fly towards it, and it'll stop you breaching the fence. So what I've done is I've spent quite a lot of time in this code. There's so many nooks and crannies and edge cases that need to fix quite a lot of things. But the main thing I wanted to do was enable minimum altitude fences for copter. So this basically allows you to define a lower altitude. So once you go above it, the fence enables. It's got to auto enable, and then once you're above it, you can't go below it without breaching it. So if you're in a manual mode, it'll breach and switch to the failsafe action. If you're in Loiter, it'll stop you going below it, which is quite cool. So I'm going to show you that now. Alright, got the copter here, so I'm going to try and do this one-handed. So, alright, arming the copter. So you can hear the regular fences are enabled. And I'm in Loiter mode, so I'm going to take off. Okay, and you can see I'm in Loiter. My minimum altitude fence is set to 5 meters, so I can go up and down at the moment because I'm not above that. What I'm going to do is going to go above 5 meters. And then you can hear there Yahoo telling me that something happened. So now I'm going to drop the throttle to 0. And you can see that it's just hanging there at 5 meters, or probably 7 meters because there's a margin set. And if I show you on Yahoo, you'll see just about, it says minimum altitude fence enabled, and it's auto enabled. So I can't come down, which is a little bit scary. I can go up, but I can't come down. So if I drop the throttle, it'll come down to about 7 meters and then stop. Now I can also do the opposite. I can go right up to maximum altitude fence, which I've set to 40 meters. And you should just hear the tone of the motors lower just as it hits that altitude fence. So you see it's not climbing anymore, even though I've got the throttle at maximum. And if I drop the throttle to 0 now, you'll see it comes down quite quickly to start with. And then as it approaches the minimum altitude fence, it slows up and is stopped from breaching, which is very cool. Now, you may be asking yourself, how do you get down? So, good question. How do you get down when it's flying like that? Well, the easiest way is to breach the fence, and you can do that by switching to a manual mode, and then there's no sort of avoidance code anymore, and you'll breach the fence and it'll land you. Or I've discovered that on these very fast copters you can breach the circle fence relatively easily just by having a high angle incline. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to fly out and you'll see it breach the circle fence and come back in RTL. So we go back to the copter again. Right, so here we go. Right, so I'm going to fly forward fairly aggressively, and you'll see, okay, so the altitude code is, now the other way you can do it is if you fly back it loses a bit of altitude. so that didn't quite work. So I think we'll have to switch to a manual mode, which I can probably do because it's gonna drop quite quickly. So I'll switch to stabilize. Here we go, and there we go. Switch to RTL, centering, and landing again. And the battery's low, so I need to come into land. And you'll see that it drops down in the landing phase. I need to set the landing speed a bit higher, I think. But you can see there it's coming down, coming down, coming down. I'm going to switch back to Loiter so I don't land in the grass, and switch off the camera. Thanks. Alright, welcome back. So just a quick bit on the fence config that I used for that presentation. So if I go to the fence options here, and let's see what we've got here. So you can see I've got fence action as the default, which is set to 1, RTL or land. So you saw that in action. And then fence alt max, so this is the setting I used to make sure it couldn't go above a certain height. I set it to 25, default is 100. And then fence alt min, this is the one that stopped it landing. I set to 5 meters, so the default is minus 10 meters, so below the ground. That's set to 5. Now, fence enable needs to be set to 1 unless you have fence auto enabled set. I don't see that here, which makes me think there's a problem. So, we're looking at the wrong copter. That's why. This is the different different setting. So I will set that back to 0 and find the right copter. There you are, a sec. Alright, so this is the right copter. So this PR isn't merged yet. I'll just show you the PR. So it's this PR, copter fence fixes, PR number 25875. And you can see that it's quite complicated, and it's had loads and loads and loads and loads of comments, and there's a lot of commits there. What are we up to commit wise? 39 commits so far. 33 files changed, so quite a lot of work going on. So this copter is running with this change. Hopefully this will get merged soon. I think it's pretty close. And if we look at the fence fixes, okay, so we've got it here. So got fence action is set to 1 still, and I had alt max set to 40, sorry, not 25. Yeah, 25 seemed a bit low. Alt min set to 5. Okay, so there's this new option, fence auto enable, and this used to only work on plane, but it works on copter now. And this is if you don't want to have fences on by default. So the easiest way to have fences on by default is with this fence enable 1. So you can set that to fence enable 1, and then everything apart from the perimeter, the minimum altitude fence will be enabled immediately. The minimum altitude fence will be auto enabled as you climb. But if you have that set to 0, you can also use this fence auto enable, which means the fences will be auto enabled in a variety of different circumstances. So you can't see the pop-up, but basically 1 means auto enable on takeoff, so as soon as you arm and take off. 2 means auto enable but disable the floor on landing, which feels a bit like the default anyway. And then the final one, 3, is auto enable when armed. So basically it will only enable the fences when you arm the copter.
Whereas if you set fence enable to 1, then the fences are enabled as soon as you set the parameter. Okay, so then fence margin is the thing I was referring to in the video when I said it was 7 meters that it was coming down to in loiter mode. So that's this fence alt min 5 plus the fence margin of 2, which gives you 7 meters. So that's why. So this is the wiggle room to stop you breaching the fence. And then also there's this new, this exists in plain but is in copter now, fence options. And so fence options 1 means don't allow mode changes while you're still in breach. So the regulators, CAA and so on, don't like the fact that you can change mode while the fence is breached and still sort of be beyond the fence. So this prevents that happening. Basically, it forces you to come back within the fence before you can change mode and do something else. So it's sort of a safety feature. So fence radius is for the circle fence, and I had it set to 100 meters, and you could have just about seen me hitting that. And then fence total relates to having a polygon fence, which you can define in Mission Planner. And then fence type is the types of fence that you want to have enabled. So I've got it set to 11 here, which is 8 plus 2 plus 1. So 8 is the minimum altitude fence, 2 is the maximum altitude fence, and 1 is the circle fence. You add all those together and you get 11. And that's it. That's the configuration. And as you can see, it works pretty well. The avoid behavior is on by default. So if you look at avoid enable, so by default it's use fence and use proximity sensor. So use fence is bit 1 or bit 0, sorry. So as long as you have avoid enable set to 1 or an odd number, then avoid will work. If you don't want that behavior, then you can set this to 0. And that's it. So hopefully this will get merged soon. It's been quite a labour of love for me, but excited about the possibilities. So thank you for watching.